Hey Jenna, the question you ask about deals with what your book refers to as the empirical rule. So I'm going to remind you what the empirical rule says as it relates to the bell curve. First of all, remember with the bell curve, the mean is always right here in the middle. So on your problem, that was 320 grams right in the middle. And then remember, at one standard deviation away from the mean, that'd be one above, would be at the inflection point to the right, and one below would be the inflection point to the left over here. Those inflection points are one standard deviation away. Now in your problem, the standard deviation was 50. And so this point over here would be at 320 plus 50, or 370. And this point back here would be at 320 minus 50, or at 270. And the rule says, the empirical rule says, that 68% of all data values will lie on those two intervals, which means on each of these smaller intervals, you would have 34% and 34%. Okay. Then if you go another standard deviation away, which would be like this distance again, so it'd put you out here. Now you're at 370 plus another 50 is 420. And on the other end, you'd be at 270 minus another 50, would put you at 220. Between those two values, 95% of all data values lie. So if you take out that 68 that we had before, 95 minus 68 is 27. And then if you divide that by 2, that gives you 13.5. So 13.5% of the values lie over here, in this little interval, or 0.135 of the values, and 13.5% lie over here. Okay. Now if we go at a third standard deviation, way over here it'd put me at 420 plus 50, it'd put me at 470. And back the other direction over here it'd put me at 220 minus 50, would put me back at 170. 99.7% of all data values lie within that interval, within 3 standard deviations of the mean. So if you take that 99.7 minus the 95, that means we've picked up 4.7%. If I divide that between the two intervals, that's 4.7 divided by 2 is 2.35% on each one of those intervals. So on each one of these, you have another 0.0235 of the values total. Here and here. Okay, so now we're ready to answer the questions. Part A, about 99.7% of organs will be between what weights? Well, that was the 3 standard deviations, which would put me at 170 and 470. So there's part A. Part B then asks what percentage of organs lies between 270 and 370. Well, 270s here and 370s here. So that's 0.34, and 0.34 is 0.68, or this 68% that we mentioned earlier. That's part B. Part C, what percentage of organs weighs less than 270 or more than 370? Okay, less than 270 would start here and go back this direction, and more than 370 would start here and go that direction. So that would be everything except these two little intervals here. So look, those two intervals include 0.34 and 0.34, which is 0.68. So let's take that out. We know under the entire curve we have an area of 1. So if I take 1 minus 0.68, I'll get 0.32. So we're looking at 32% of the values that are below 270 or above 370. Okay, and finally the last one, part D, says what percentage of organs weighs between 220 and 470. So 220 is here, 470 is way back here. So you're going to add this 0.135 that you can't see there, and 0.34, and 0.34, and this other 0.135, and this 0.0235. You'll add all those together and then convert that to a percent. I hope this helps.